him. He is responsible for the aerospace part of the mechanical operation. The Command Aerospace is the part that's responsible for about 15 years, if I recall. 15 years ago, Charlie Cavan, the president of Command, came and gave a talk. And 15 years later, of course, unfortunately, Charlie passed away. But we're very fortunate to have Gregory. He is right at the top, responsible for all global aerospace manufacturing and operations. And we thank you for being a part of the weekend. And I guess I'll let you know, I understand from him that if you have any questions, feel free to ask as he lectures or as he talks. And we'll go through
okay.
And that's all about it.
Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody's warmed up. Saturday classes, not two. Okay, it won't be a lecture, so stay awake. This will be interactive. We're going to talk about leadership today in a couple of different ways. And I'd like to get some of your thoughts in there. And I'll start, first of all, one of the most important parts of leadership, at least from my perspective, is the ability to communicate. Can you communicate? It doesn't matter how good your ideas are. If you can't express those, if you can't get people to understand those, then they're wasted. So we'll spend a little time on communication. And it's all about, it's not transmitting, it's not talking, it's listening and it's understanding. When I talk about listening, we use this term called listening for understanding. And how many times have you been talking to someone, having a debate, and you see them go, and what are they doing? They're not listening to you anymore. They've already decided what they want to say, and they're waiting for you to stop so they can tell you what they want to tell. That's not listening for understanding. Listening for understanding is when you see people and they go. Then they process what you've said, and then they respond. But we work on that a lot, and one of the things that I'll talk about, in the businesses that I run, we have 5 very diverse businesses, and they're all over the country. Several of them are here in Bloomfield, but we have facilities in Middletown, Connecticut, Orlando, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, Wichita, Kansas, Seattle, Tucson, the UK, and West Germany. And once every quarter, I get the 5 business presidents and the rest of the staff together. And we split our time between tactical issues and strategic issues, and then we always set some time aside to work on leadership traits. And as we go through the discussion today, I'll bring a couple of those forward to you. One of those is listening for understanding. You can imagine you get this room full of type A's, everybody's talking all the time. And I said, well, we're not really exchanging any ideas, we're just making a lot of static in the room. Someone said once that God gave you two ears and 1 mouth, and He intended for you to use those in those proportions. I think it's a pretty good rule to follow. So we'll start there, and my question to you is, can you communicate with me? So we're going to do a little exercising and get you involved very early here. I've done this before, and what you have to do is this. I'm going to tell you some things that I like. I say, I like this, but I don't like that. And you have to listen for understanding, and then talk back to me in my language. I don't want you to tell me what the trick is, if there's a trick, if you figure there's a trick. What I want you to do, if you've heard this before, if you've done this, I didn't make this up. I learned this from someone else, but it's a good exercise. If you know this, then wait for a couple, and then you chime in, raise your hand, chime in, and do it the way I do it. So you have to speak my language. That's part of listening for understanding and communicating is can I hear you, can I listen to you, and then can I communicate back. So I'll give you a couple of things, and when you think you have it, just raise your hand. And I'll start by saying, I like Connecticut, but I don't like Rhode Island. Okay? I like tobacco. I don't like corn. Okay? Now you have to talk to me the way, tell me what I like and what I don't like.
I like apples, but I don't like oranges.
Okay, that's true. I do like apples, and I don't like oranges, but you might have gotten lucky. Did you know this one before you started?
No.
Okay, so give me another one. Well, you're thinking about that. Since we're on the food, I'll tell you, I like carrots, but I don't like peas. I'll give you peas. Let me know when you're ready.
I like Mississippi, but I don't like Alabama.
That's right. I like Mississippi, but I don't. That's the fastest anybody's ever gotten this. You sure you didn't do this before? Okay. Okay, we'll switch. I like summer, but I don't like winter. I don't tell them. Don't whisper. I like pepper, but I don't like salt. Anybody else can communicate with me next?
I like rain, but I don't like snow.
You like what?
I like rain, but I don't like snow.
Nope. In fact, I don't like either one of those. I like cattle, but I don't like sheep. I like butter. I don't have a lot of food in here. I like butter, but I don't like margarine. Anybody yet? You can think of a couple more. And if I start running out of my list, I'll need you to help me. Ballet. I like ballet, but I don't like dancing. Go ahead. I don't like either one of those. I don't like music and I don't like hip hop. Kind of close. Pardon me?
But you like classical.
That's true. I like classical, but I don't like music.
So would you say I don't like music? I like music, but I don't like singing.
No, I don't like music and I don't like singing. Go ahead.
I like Mississippi, and I also like Tennessee.
Okay, I like them both. What don't I like?
You don't like Kansas.
That's right, I don't like Kansas.
I like dessert, but I don't like drinks.
That's true. So you guys both got to give me another one, because even a blind squirrel occasionally finds an acorn.
I like Minneapolis, but I don't like St. Paul.
That's true. I like Minneapolis, I don't like St. Paul.
I like Pittsburgh, but I don't like Philadelphia.
That's right. I like Pittsburgh, but I don't like Philadelphia. I like kittens, but I don't like cats. I like colleges. I don't like universities. Okay.
Manhattan, but you don't like Soho?
That's true. I like Manhattan, but I don't like Soho, so I need another one from you as well. I like swimming. I don't like bathing. You got another one yet?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Sorry. Just one.
I like scissors. I don't like knives. You thinking you got one?
No, I was just telling that.
Trying to get the answer out of her?
I think that this is the part of my brain that doesn't function. I'm not.
Okay, I like coffee. I don't like tea. I have to communicate with me. Don't tell me I'm not interested in what the formula is. We're talking about communication.
You like knitting, but you don't like crochet?
I do like knitting, but I don't like crochet. That's right. You know?
You like sheets, but you don't like blankets.
Oh, now you've gone off because I don't like either one. So now you have to requalify. You're on the right track. Think about the other likes and dislikes.
You like fascinets.
I think so. Did you have one?
Like cooking, but you don't like eating?
Now, you're close. I think you're starting to think the right way. But I don't like either one of them, but you're getting warmer. I like bells, but I don't like alarms. Think about that one in the way that you did it. Yeah?
You like battle, but not war.
That's true. I like battle, but I don't like war. I think we're getting close again. Everybody like herring, but I don't like sardines.
I think you like puppets and dolls.
I do. What don't I like?
Pop.
Pop?
Yeah, toys.
That's right. I don't like pop. Don't like
I know
cinnamon.
you don't like toys in general.
That's right. Don't like toys. I like clippers. I don't like shears. We have one more in there.
Tallahassee, not Miami.
That's right. I like Tallahassee, but I don't like Miami. Okay. We could do this for a long time. I think it's kind of uncomfortable when there's only 2-3 people who haven't gotten there. So, what's your name?
Jenny.
Jenny, why don't you tell us what the formula is to determine what are the things that I like and what don't I like?
You like words that have double consonants.
All right, everybody hear that? And it takes a little while, and this is part of listening and comprehending. I like words with double consonants and don't like everything else. And the tendency is everybody thinks they know right away. They want to talk about Connecticut and tobacco, and you go off in all different directions. And the reason I do this is to get people to start thinking about listening and communicating. So it's a very critical part of leadership. We talk all the time in our staff meetings. I encourage all of the presidents and all the staff meetings to go get training in the area of communicating and presentations. Because it becomes critical, as I said earlier, if you can't convey your ideas, if you can't convey that, how are you going to get people to follow you? So it doesn't matter where you end up in your career. It doesn't matter whether you end up in sales, whether you end up in engineering, whether you end up in customer service. You're selling yourself all the time. And people don't like that concept that they're selling yourself, but your credibility is what's going to make the difference no matter where you are. So your ability to communicate, your ability to express your ideas will be a critical success factor for you no matter where you end up. So spend some time communicating. And we're going to build on that a little bit. And I'm going to switch a little bit to you and talk about leadership. So we talk about this all the time. We're going to have a course on leadership. So we'll start by what is that? And you're not off the hook here. I'm going to ask you. You tell me. We'll use the blackboard if you want. But how did you define a leader? Do you want to talk about what their attributes are and the work there? Anybody, give me some attributes. When you think of a leader in terms of leadership, what kinds of things do you think about?
A person that can skillfully influence people to do things they want to and not want to do.
Sounds like my mother. Okay, so influence. Okay, what else?
Vision.
Yeah.
Vision. Okay. What else?
And lead by example.
Example.
Trust.
Trust.
Integrity.
Integrity. I like that one. So it's in the same area.
Credibility.
Confident.
I don't like credibility.
Inspirational. That's another I in there.
Okay, I think we're getting the idea. I had a couple of quotes that I thought I'd share with you. I had the good fortune to attend some pretty good leadership seminars in my time. One was with Gary Hamel, C.K. Prahalad. If you haven't heard those names, take a look at them. They're pretty much always in the top 10. And one of the things that came out, and I kept this was quite some time ago that I went there. Gary Hamel says, a leader is someone, was close to what you said, a leader is someone you would follow to a place you would not go yourself, which is an interesting definition. That's the best that I've found. There's a couple other quotes here, and Dwight Eisenhower, his was close. The art of getting someone else to do something you want done because he wants to do it. Again, that kind of follows on, on both of those, and you're inspirational enough that people go do things they wouldn't normally do because of their loyalty to you. Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. It's an interesting one. The task of the leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been. That was Henry Kissinger who said that. And this one, when we start to go back into business, I like this one a lot. This one's from Teddy Roosevelt. The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and self-restraint to keep from meddling with them when they do it. We'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. Okay, so let's switch gears now. We talk about, here's our leader, influential, visionary, sets an example, trust, integrity, credibility, inspiration. We're going to shift gears, and the other side we talk about is what's a manager now, a different term that we're going to introduce here. Give me some of the same things we'll write down over here and say, what's a manager?
Manager will probably provide the tools that you need to work.
Okay.
Planner.
I didn't hear.
Planner. This person does a lot of
Planner.
planning.
More?
Listener.
Listener. Okay.
Execution.
Innocent.
What exactly do you mean?
Well, sometimes. You think that's a communicator too? Okay. I'll buy that. It tells you he's going to kill you.
An administrator? An administrator?
Administrator? Okay. do you put administrator? That's why I had trouble with bassinet. I didn't know what that
Facilitator.
This is, pardon?
Facilitator.
Facilitator, okay. Okay. Now, when we talk about tactical versus strategic, do you see a difference between the two? How so?
Manager is tactical, and you're strategic. Yep.
Okay. You have your choice now as your career develops. Who wants to be a leader? Who wants to be a manager? So raise your hand if you want to be a leader. Okay, raise your hand if you want to be a manager. Okay, why?
I think you can do both.
Okay. Why do the people who... But why did you pick manager?
Well, because in order to be a leader, sometimes you have to be able to manage.
Okay, but end of the road. When you're reaching the pinnacle of your career, what do you want to be, a manager or a leader?
Well, leader. You want to be known as a leader, but you have to be a manager.
Okay. Those who pick leader, why? Why do you want to be a leader?
Has a more long-term, I think it's a more long-term position. I mean, a leader typically looks out much more long-term than a manager does from a standpoint of guiding an organization.
Okay.
It's a much more higher level kind of view.
And does that appeal to you more than some of these things?
Yeah.
Why? You think that's a higher level to aspire to?
That as well as far as a position. I mean,
I think it pays more. Okay.
For me, a lot of it comes down to the first word under leader, is that I want to have influence.
Okay.
And I think leaders end up having more influence. Managers may have a lot of influence in the short term and to a more limited set of people, to the people directly in line, where leaders can have influence over a wide range of people, both directly and indirectly.
Okay.
I think leaders are more memorable.
Memorable. For what
Long
reason?
lasting, I think that's where Arnell was going. More long lasting, more memorable, or influential. People are going to remember you longer than just someone who dictated as a manager. I think a leader has more than what a manager can offer. Depending, it's all situational, obviously, but
Sure.
I think that's where you're getting at.
I think choosing to be a leader means that you've taken on the responsibility of wanting to make an impact, a serious impact.
And do you think managers don't make an impact?
Again, I think it's a scaffolding process. I think that you sometimes need to take on the responsibility of a manager to learn the necessary steps and also necessary functions of communication in order to become a leader so that you can.
So do you see this as a hierarchy? There's manager and then leader?
To a certain extent, only because of experience. Through experience, like if you're just starting out. I think that when you're first starting out, there may be fundamentals that you need to learn and practice. So you can become a leader as a manager, but I don't think you can necessarily step into the role of a manager and automatically be a leader. I think experience is necessary.
What about the opposite? Can a leader be a manager?
Yes.
So you see it as not reciprocal for a manager, but reciprocal for a leader. Okay.
I was just saying everything listed on a leader seem more like traits versus the manager seem like there's things that you do.
Attributes.
So the leader, it's something that not just applies to your job, but it's a way of life. So it's broader than just what you do in the office or at work.
Okay,
So to be aspiring.
You were a leader. You rose your hand for the leader. Why do you want to do this and not that?
Because it applies to more than just one thing, like your job. It applies across a lot of different in your life in general.
Okay.
So you can set an example at work and at home. So it's traits that you aspire to be during your entire career path or your life.
And again, I'm driving at you. Why do you want this side of the ledger? Or what appeals to you personally? You raise your hand immediately. Say, I want to be a leader. I don't.
Because it's a higher level view of everything.
So you attach some level of judgment to that. You think this is better.
Yes.
Okay?
Us being here right now as prospective CEOs or COOs, we want to be leaders. We're setting the standard as opposed to a manager. Those are attributes that you hopefully a leader will have in order to obtain being a leader, to direct people. So a leader is the key pivotal position of being here.
And that's why you want to do that?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
But I think we're putting the leader context as, the guy at the top.
Okay.
But I don't think you have to be the guy at the top to be a leader. I mean, you can lead in anything you do. I mean, you don't have to be the leader of the company. You could be, here's a guy who does this particular job. He's, he's the guy that knows how to do this and can help you out and get you through things and show you how to do whatever that specific task is. I think you need leaders everywhere in your company in order to have people. Have it be more than just a direct flow down. This is what you shall do. You have to do this. I mean, that's kind of the manager side of things. You want to be able to follow people and feel good following people everywhere in the organization.
Okay, so explore that for a minute. This side, I sensed a little judgment in you that these guys are telling me what to do, and these guys are trying to influence me to come along. That was my interpretation of what you said.
Yes.
There's a judgment in there that it's not so good. These are the dictators here, and he's this guy that I want to follow into the fire.
Yeah, I mean, right or wrong, I see the manager as a title and the leader is a quality.
Okay, so I'll ask you the same question. You see this as better?
Sure, snap judgment, sure.
No, let me answer for you.
I mean, if I using my same analogy, I mean, as a quality instead of just a title. I mean, you don't want to just be called the best. You want to be the best.
Okay. So, all right, go ahead.
I don't see one as better than the other. I see
why
them
not?
as different.
Okay, different for sure. There's a very different set of...
And you need both in an organization.
Okay, I agree with that.
And so I went leader because it aligns more with my particular interests and maybe skills. But you absolutely need really good managers as well, or you can strategize and vision all you want, but if you can't execute that strategy, then it doesn't matter.
Okay, so hold that thought, because we're going to work our way back to that discussion. I'd like to stay on this issue of what do you want to be, why, and are there some judgments behind your decision? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I choose leader, but because I just think that as a leader, you can influence your manager to become leaders. Essentially, I want my managers to be leaders in their own right, so they can get their teams following the way that I get my managers to follow me in the battle, that kind of thing.
Okay, but again, you see that as higher, better, different?
Different. I mean, a leader is, just like the gentleman over there said, I mean, a leader can be in any facet of your business. Your leaders are everywhere. They don't have to be, it's not always a hierarchy. So I agree with him when he said
Okay, and when I asked that question, I didn't give you the opportunity to be the CEO. I said, do you want to be a leader?
No, exactly.
So when you're described leader, do you want to be a leader or do you want to be a manager? Go ahead.
I want to be a leader because I want to be able to chart the course and set the direction and have people follow where I believe we should go. And based on my judgment on where I want, what direction I want to head to and what point I want to get to, that's why I want to be a leader. And I enjoy having people follow me. I enjoy influencing other people and getting them to buy into my vision and my ideas and to an ultimate outcome. And that's why I would want to be a leader.
So same question, does that mean, is that better?
It's not a question of whether it's better, it's a question of what you would feel more comfortable doing and where you're better suited.
Okay, and you think you're better suited for leadership?
I do.
Okay. Back?
Me? I feel to be an effective manager, you have to be a leader. So I think you need both.
Okay, we'll come to that. You rose your hand for leader, if you want to be a leader.
Correct.
Better, worse, same, different? What's on your mind?
I think
why
they're
do you
connected.
Think you want to be a leader?
To me, they're connected. In order for me to be an effective manager, I have to be a leader, especially if regardless if I'm leading a project or people, I need to be the vision, be inspirational, and then I need to have the tools to implement. So it's really like being the creator and being able to implement. So to me, you really need both. But if you had to choose, leader would come first in order to manage.
Okay, because it's better?
No, I can't say which is better. I mean,
Okay.
I work in organizations where there's people that are good at creating process, but they can't implement. Or people who can follow the process but can't create. So you need both in order to be successful.
Okay.
Well, going back to the original comment, I don't think at any level of leadership you lose management. I mean, if you go to the top, CEOs are still managers. The president is still a manager. They have teams, they have to communicate, they have to execute. So no matter what, there is management all the way up. It's what kind of management do you want to portray? Do you want to be a leader? In order to be a good manager, you have to have leadership skills, kind of like what Kyle was saying. But there is no separation in a lot of ways.
All right. Yet, if there's no separation, that there was a clear preference in the room, exception of you two guys here, want to be a leader. And what I was digging at is there some judgment in that says that choosing leader is better than manager? Yeah.
I just think that it suggests that a leader is a successful manager, and I have my hand up for both because I, was interested in both of those qualities. Because there's the credibility and the integrity, you can imply from that they have earned that credibility and integrity by doing a good job as a manager.
Okay.
I couldn't help but think when I listened to this, leaders in vogue now. We teach that it's more sexy. I see it all the time, the same thing happen. It makes me wonder if you had an organization full of all alpha type leaders, I don't know if it'd be such a great place to be in. Is there room for following?
There'd sure be a lot of great ideas. I don't know anything would get done.
You get a whole lot of good things started.
It's called confidence. I think we sort of communicated that to students. Leadership seems sexy, and maybe it fits with self-absorption.
I'm not an expert in the subject anyway, but I think...
Not me neither.
But I would imagine that one of the main distinguishing factors between the two groups, leaders versus managers, is that the leaders have a bird's eye view of the entire organization. They want to chart the course of the organization in terms of what is acceptable behavior in the community, what is one of the rights and responsibilities, and sets the broad brushes which are in turn implemented and executed by managers at the lower down and level. So they have a vision, and one of the important components of the vision, besides the direction of the company and from an economic projection point of view, is the vision of how the employees behave and what is considered acceptable behavior, so that the whole organization functions as a harmony. That is, in my opinion, where the leader's main role would be, but the leader cannot supervise the day-to-day execution of that whole harmony. That would be the managers. I don't know if you might know.
And I think that's pretty much the consensus of what we arrived to here. And the reason I was trying to concentrate on the judgment factor, some of you were moving into the, we need both, and I'd like to explore that a little bit. But what I was trying to get is we have this tendency that maybe for exactly, we teach a lot of leadership, and leadership gets a lot of attention. I really try to push away from making a judgment between these two. That these are really important attributes, both of them. And we've tended to give this side a lot more glitz. And not everybody's going to meet this criteria. Not everybody are those kinds of influential leaders. That doesn't make them bad or invaluable. And we have this sense, whether we admit it openly or whether it's underneath us, is these kinds of skills are really critical to any business. And we need to get away from managers. I was a manager. It's a tactical guy. Well, who's going to make this stuff work? So the reason I kept pressing you away from that is to try to get that understanding and underscore to you that both of these sides of the ledger are important. And no matter where you end up, I'll guarantee you'll do a little bit of both. Now it depends on where your certain skills and talents lie, or where you're going to end up. But both of these are critical. We want to get away from that. I talk about, and a lot of times when we talk about leadership and we talk about management, we get into strategic versus tactical. And there is a good connection between leadership doing strategic things and management doing tactical things. But your job, no matter where you are, and several people touched on that, both of them are in there. I set some guidelines for our folks, and I said, look, how do we want to conduct ourselves? I said, I look at my job, and I say, I think I'd like to be about 80% strategic and 20% tactical. And then I look at the 5 business presidents who report to me, and I said, nominally, I don't know what the right ratio is. Maybe it's 70-30, maybe it's 60-40, but I'd like more of your time thinking about where you want to position your business in the next 5 years than actually management. Then I get down to the next level, which are the direct reports, and typically those are the functional leaders, the person who's running operations, the person who's running marketing, the person who's running engineering. So that's, I think, where it flips. And I said, that's where I want these attributes to be the majority of what they're doing. And that's not to say that they're not leaders. But I want their time spent, and that's the heart of the business. That's where the execution occurs. So I said, as we conduct ourselves, when we look at the way we're doing our jobs day to day, let's think about it that way. So at the present level, so where are we going? Where are we going to take this business over the next 5 to 10 years? And then I want your direct reports keeping the factory running, keeping the customers happy. But we want them thinking strategically too, because one of the most important things in setting this strategy is everybody's got to know it. If everybody in the whole organization doesn't know the strategy, then how can you expect them to follow? And we tend to do the same thing as we'll sit through. Let's get the management team in, let's present the strategy to them, and off we go. What about the guys on the floor? What about the managers? What are the leaders? So don't they deserve to know where we're going? If they know where we're going, aren't they going to be just a little bit more receptive to following? And that's where this balance comes in. And I'll tell you what, it's really hard. It goes back to this communication thing. I spend tons of my time trying to communicate, and I can't do it enough. Once a week, every week, I get to one of our facilities someplace, and the 2 things that I do is one, I'll have a skip-level lunch. So I'll go to the president's direct reports, all the functional leaders, and we'll spend an hour and a half, no presentations, it's just a discussion. I usually talk to them about what I see as the strategy for the group, and then I'll allow them to ask questions and we have an interaction. The other part I do is I'll do the same thing with people from all through the business, from somebody who's running a machine to a mid-level manager, and I do that once a week as well. And every time I come out of those, I say, these people are really engaged, but we're not communicating enough. But we're not getting enough information. And you look at these things and say, influence, vision, example, you got to communicate that stuff at the top here, and that's why I opened with that. Doesn't matter how good your ideas are if they don't flow down. They have to be understood before people are going to follow you. And we keep trying to do more and more. I have a monthly newsletter that I put out to try to get to every single employee in the aerospace group, and there's 2,200 of them. I want to make sure every one of them gets that, and we concentrate on what's happening in the business and where are we going. We try to do all hands meetings, and we're still not getting there. So I tell our guys all the time, I said, it's be pretty hard to over-communicate. When somebody thinks they've over-communicated, let me know, because I haven't gotten there yet. So, go ahead.
How do you make a determination of exactly what to communicate, though? Because now that I'm starting to kind of ascend a little bit higher in the ranks of my company, I'm becoming more privy to information that I wasn't. And I from what I'm learning is some stuff you really can't disseminate down.
Yep.
So how as a high level leader do you make that determination of what to flow down and what not to flow down, such that your vision is properly communicated, but you're still able to steer your workforce in a direction you want them to?
Okay. I was looking for a judgment on here, didn't see it. But you have part of what your job is to determine those things. Now, examples that I can give you is part of our strategy in growing our business. I'm going to go back to that in a second. It involves acquisitions. And I can't go talk about acquisitions in detail to anybody, because you study SEC regulations and things like that. You can't. But instead of saying, hey, I'm right in the middle of doing due diligence on global aerosystems, I can't say that to other people in the company. What I can say is a good portion of what we're trying to do to accelerate the growth in this company is acquisition. And here's where we're looking to do acquisition. So some of it you have to filter. and some of it you have to simplify in order for people to do it. So that part is your judgment, and that's going to determine how good a communicator you are. Get help on it. You know, I try to get people. I use people all the time. The two people on my staff, the vice president of finance and the vice president of HR, I use all the time as sounding boards. I said, well, what do you think? This is what I'd like to, and they give me great input. And many times they can connect with the business presidents and other people in different ways than I can, because they're always looking at me as the boss, you know, so that I can use the VP of Finance and HR as sounding boards for the rest of the corporation as well. So use the people around you, and you'll get a feel for what you can say and what you can. What I like to do is boil it down as much as you can, particularly as you get farther down into the organization. I tell our group is we'll do $600 million in business this year, and there's about 2,200 of it. And that sounds like big numbers, but in aerospace, those aren't big numbers. So we're not a big player in a lot of the areas that we participate. We're pretty good at what we do. We drive pretty good margins. So we try to boil our strategy down. I use 3 words. I said that there's 3 things that we want to do with this group. We want more diversity. And when I talk about diversity, is where 70% of our business is driven from military contracts and 30% from commercial. That's not a good balance, particularly in a shrinking defense budget. So one is diversity. We need to look at growing our participation in commercial markets. And so the second part is depth. So we're just flat out not big enough. So we got to have scale. And when we talk about having scale, I don't want to be a mile wide and an inch deep. I want to get really good at the things that are in our core competencies. So we have diversity, depth, and the last one is differentiation. A good portion of what we do today, now roughly half is what we call build to print. You guys understand what that means? That means I'm taking someone else's design and then we build it. One of our biggest jobs, do you know what the UH-60 Blackhawk is? Yeah. Okay. We build a good portion of that aircraft for Sikorsky. We build all of the cockpits in Jacksonville. We take the tail from Turkey and the cabin from Vought and the cockpit that we build, and we put that together right here in Bloomfield and put it on a truck and send it down. Those are all build to print. We do that very well because we're a helicopter company, but we don't own anything. We don't own any intellectual property. So we're trying to push the company more towards getting more design capability, because if we have design capability, we have intellectual property. If we have intellectual property, we have barriers to entry from our competitors, and we can drive higher margins. So that's it. Say depth, diversity, differentiation. If our capital is not going to one of those 3 things, somebody ought to be saying, well, why are we doing this? So this idea of communicating and getting it into simple terms so people understand it is one of the best things you can do when you're on this side and on this side. And we're going to move towards this idea of talking about expectations here in a minute. And I wrote down some things and said, well, what goes on in my job? And when I look at this mixture between them, I said, well, what happens to me on a day-to-day basis? I go in each day, and I can say I don't know what my day is going to entail. And I don't have a series of meetings all set up, but you know, once the war stops, the plane goes out the window. Some of the things I see, coach. I'm a coach sometimes. I'm a friend sometimes. I'm a mentor sometimes. I'm a critic sometimes. Sometimes I'm a den mother. Sometimes I'm a disciplinarian. Sometimes I'm a teacher. Sometimes I'm a facilitator. Sometimes I'm a devil's advocate. Sometimes I'm a student. I learn stuff from my folks all the time. Sometimes I'm a collaborator. And sometimes I'm a dictator. I like to think I'm a benevolent dictator, but that's my version. We'll ask my people what they think. And actually, I do that. One of the other things that we try to do is get feedback. I try to understand how I'm doing my job. And one of the ways that I do that is we have a pretty open relationship between, but still people won't always tell you, and they won't always give you feedback. Either they don't have the time or it's not the right environment. So one of the things I do is I'll take, like these, we're going to use this for a different exercise today, and I'll pass them out at the end of the staff meeting. I said, well, I'd like you guys all to take 5 minutes. And on one side of this, I want you to write down things you think I'm doing well in this job. Then flip it over and tell me about some things that you don't think I'm doing well or I could do better. And you get great feedback that way. And that's just, I feel like we have a pretty candid relationship, but I still get interesting things that way. And that will cause me to change some of the behaviors. And you find out you think you're communicating all the time. And it's so easy to misinterpret You know, you think about that old game, you play telephone, remember that game? Well, when you're speaking at the top and it goes through the organization, do that telephone game, and it's amazing what comes out at the other end. I go to these focus meetings, and people will say, well, I hear you're closing down this facility. I said, where did you hear that? No, well, it's because we wanted to do this. I said, well, that part was right, but how did you connect that with closing the facility? Well, Joe told me. So these things you fight all the time, and that's where communication, I'll give you an example. We opened a facility in Mexico this year, and that's part of our diversity strategy. Said we can't get into the commercial markets by manufacturing in high-cost areas. We need to be able to have a low-cost area. So immediately the Jacksonville facility said, they're shipping all our jobs to Jacksonville, Mexico. So I spent tons of time in Jacksonville meeting with employees saying, nope, what they're going to do is they're going to be feeding you. So we can get some low-cost assemblies and parts and extrusions and details, and we can make them very cost-effectively there. Then we ship them to Jacksonville. You guys do the final assembly, which is what you're best at. So your business is going to get bigger as a result of having this, and our overall business is going to get better, and we're going to have this diversity. So those kinds of communications become extremely critical. So when we talk about these things, leadership, it's a talent, but it's also a skill. You can get better at this stuff. Some of it is, you've either got it or you don't in some areas. But most of these areas, if you work on, you can get better. You can be a better communicator. You can do those things better. So we're going to switch here for a second. We talk about communication and we talk about expectations. And the idea is that if I want you to do something, if I'm up here in my leadership position, I'm trying to drive you somewhere, I say, what I'd like you to do is, how well do you do that? Is your message clear? So most people have paper, I think, but those who don't, there's nothing magic about this, it's just small. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'd like you to put down some responses. And we're not going to collect these. This is just so that you have them. And we're going to work on expectations. Okay, the first question, let's see, you can, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. Everybody ready? We good? Anybody not ready? We're good. Still scrambling for pen, you want one? Is it a pen you need? Paper?
For a candy bar, don't mind this one.
Okay, here's the first one. My neighbor just bought an expensive car. How much did it cost? Write down a number. That's number one. I recently saw an article on that subject. How long ago did I see it? Write down the time. Okay, number 3. Now be careful with this one. My boss is an older man. How old is he? This one is dangerous.
That number changes.
4th one, I saw a few movies this summer. How many movies did I see? Okay, you take your car to a mechanic, he looks under the hood and says, this is going to take a while. How long is it going to take? Okay, you've applied for a job, you get a letter in the mail from the company. Last sentence is, you will hear from us in the very near future. When are you going to hear from them? Okay, your supervisor, this is the last one. Your supervisor says, I want that ASAP. When do they want it? Since we decided I don't like the managers. Okay, answer number 1. Anybody give me a number? 80,000? Okay. Who's got something more than 80?
45. Oh,
100?
Of course you do.
100? Anything higher than 100?
Amelia.
What? Car is very
Bugatti.
important to him.
Okay, name your, okay, so car.
More than
Clearly,
a
a million is going to be the top. Okay. Below 80?
55. 40.
40. Who
I
had
just
40?
bought a car. 30 is too expensive for me.
65. I'm looking low. 40, anybody lower than 40?
30.
30.
30.
You consider 30 an expensive car?
I do.
Okay.
I consider it expensive for my neighbor.
Yeah.
You didn't say that we bought an expensive car. You said a neighbor. So I went to a higher number for the
Catch it
neighbor.
on. Okay. Number 2, you saw the article on the subject. Number. Anyway.
1 day.
2
1
weeks.
day, okay. Who's got something more than 1 day?
3 months.
One
More
month.
than a week?
2 weeks.
2
3
weeks.
months.
1 month.
3 months.
1 month. Recently, I saw an article on this. 1 month.
I got higher. I got 9
3 months.
days.
I got 3
Meeting every
months.
day, so.
Okay, who's got something less than a day? Does somebody have 1 day?
I got this morning, but
Yeah, 1 day.
this morning.
How many articles do you read? Right?
Besides school.
Right.
That don't count. And Facebook isn't news.
Okay, how old is your boss?
65. 62.
I said 62 plus.
65.
I got 65. Anybody more than 65?
Retiring, they're not your boss anymore.
70s.
Okay,
I had 70, yeah.
70? You had 70s? Okay.
I'm aging, so it's
Okay, no, I appreciate that.
I like a lot of my answers open.
The low end, 55 I heard? Anybody lower than 55?
50s.
46?
47.
47?
You got classmates in here too.
Older than
Anybody lower than 42? You're not taking project management, are you? You'll have an older professor. Okay, I saw a few movies. Number?
3.
3. 5.
More than 2.
3 to 5.
Any more than 5? Okay, 5. Movies. Lower than 3? 2? Maybe lower than 2? I mean, 1 would hardly qualify as a few. Movies, okay, the Card's Mechanic.
3 weeks.
2 weeks.
3 days.
3 days.
4 days.
1 hour.
Go to the top end first.
3 weeks.
4 hours.
3 weeks, 3 weeks.
It's gonna take a lot, 4 days.
We got 3 weeks into this.
You need a mechanic in 3 weeks.
Anything lower than a week?
Yeah, I said 6 hours.
Okay.
6 hours is a while with me.
Is anybody lower than an hour?
Everything takes an hour. Oil change takes an hour. Nothing takes under an hour.
Okay, letter in the mail.
30 days.
1 month.
1 month. A week. A month.
Month? Anybody more than a month?
No.
Okay. Less than a week? Anybody less than a week?
I said within a week.
Within a week.
1 week, anybody?
Within a week. Within a week.
It takes a week just to
Let's see. Okay, supervisor wants it ASAP.
End of the day.
By law.
Yes,
How do you know a business cycle?
You gotta pull it right out of your pocket.
By law.
An hour.
Yeah, but this project could be a year-long project.
Okay, a day, more than a day?
I just put by the end of the business cycle. All my answers are open ended.
End of the business cycle.
Because some people cycle in 24 hours. You don't know.
Okay.
So
Anybody else have anything like a week?
cycle's like 35 years.
No.
3 days.
you got time.
3 All right, now take a look at that. Those seem like fairly simple questions, and take a look at the answers. We go from 30,000 to 1 million on the car.
He doesn't.
On the article, we go from 8 to 1.
Your neighbor can buy a car.
Old is anywhere between 42 and the 70s. I like the 70s better myself. Movies, a few to 5. Mechanic, 1 hour to 3 weeks. A letter that you're going to get soon, is either a week or a month. And the boss wants something ASAP, on the spot, up to 3 days. So what's the point of the exercise? We're talking about now setting expectations. And each of these, we ask something, and we got this huge range. So what do you need to think about when you're in these roles, and it doesn't have to be this one, and you want things done, and you're setting expectations, what would you think differently now that you've done this exercise?
Same thing you are.
Better be
Specific?
The language.
Some examples.
Descriptive communication.
Smart.
The idea here is you tell somebody, I need this ASAP, and then you walk away. In your mind, you're saying, I'm expecting this by 5 o'clock. The person who you gave it to might have thought 3 days. So at the end of the day, you're angry. The other person's chugging along on this task thinking, I got 2 more days. This is part of this communication thing. And then the other part of it, if we had some more time to explore, is what did you really ask for? Do they know what the deliverable is? So you get it on time. Is that what I wanted? How often does that happen? So when we talk about leadership and we talk about communication, we spend a lot of time, again, in these exercises, I said, well, what does he want? I try to use very specific language when I talk with my folks. I need the operations review report by the end of business Friday. And then, of course, we've got operations in Seattle now, so who's end of business? Their end of business and mine. So now I put on end of business Eastern Standard Time. And I learned that one the hard way. It's like instead of 8 o'clock at night, it's on time! So that leads me to what are the kinds of things that I do. I pulled two things. I actually have a thing, and I truly call it this. I call it my user's manual. And I give it to all the people who work with me. I said, this will tell you how I operate. And it helps people to understand the things that I like and dislike other than words with two consonants. And how to communicate, what things irk me, what things I like. And I pulled 2 pages because we were talking about this idea of communication and expectations. And I'll read these to you because it's always a two-way street here when you talk about expectations. I can expect my staff to do stuff, but they have reasonable expectations from me as well. So we use this for discussion. And this isn't all-encompassing, but it gives some people some idea. I said, first of all, I expect you to operate independently and effectively without day-to-day supervision. So I'm telling my people, I'm not looking over your shoulder. When we say we're going to do something, you go do it. So I expect you to meet your obligations in full and on time. However, I expect you to inform me in a timely manner if circumstances prevent you from meeting an obligation. Be prepared with viable alternatives to minimize the impact and maximize recovery. So we have this leads to the next one, which is bring forward solutions, not problems. So I don't mind debating things with the staff, but don't throw problems up at me. We don't get to delegate up. First of all, I'm in a worse position to fix it than you are because you probably know more about it. And I'm happy to debate things and say, well, here's the problem. Here's what I've done. I've got these 3 solutions. I tend to go with number 1. What do you think? I love to have that discussion. But, hey, guess what? We missed a delivery. That's a come back when you have some solutions kind of response. Okay, I will assume planned progress unless otherwise informed. No surprises. I expect you to, and this is one you saw me, I think, practicing this a little bit today. I expect you to actively engage and debate issues, but support your positions, recommendations, and viewpoints with logic, conviction, and business acumen, not just emotion. So, we engage and we play a lot of devil's advocate. So just stay in with it, because if we debate it a little bit, we might get a better answer. Because I come back and challenge you, doesn't mean I don't like it. Stay in, hang around for a couple of rounds, and we'll see if we can get a better solution. Okay, I expect you to be an advocate for the corporation as a whole, not just your area of responsibility, make commands succeed. So we tell people, we're not going to allow you to be parochial. We're all responsible for the success of the company. Okay, I expect you to ask questions or seek clarification if you're not clear on direction I provide. So if I do a lousy job here and they don't understand what I want to come back. Say, come back and tell me I didn't do a good job. And what is it that we need? Operate ethically with integrity, honesty, and professionalism at all times. And the last one is respect my privacy and work-life balance decisions. Now, the flip side looks a lot like that. I said, okay, you can expect me to make every effort to be available and get back to you with timely decisions, approvals, and feedback. So that's part of my responsibility. When they bring stuff forward, I sometimes have to make decisions and get that back on a timely basis to them. I'll give you the respect, independence, authority, and flexibility to manage your area of responsibility. Again, this goes to the, it's independent, but I'll also give you the tools you need. You can expect me to delegate to the appropriate level and trust those empowered to do the job right. And we try not to look over people's, let you make the decision. Let's push decisions down to the lowest possible area where a good decision can be made. But then we follow. You can expect me to seek to understand and monitor progress and results. That's my trust but verify. I don't get to go away forever. I get to come and check and say, make sure that the progress is going, but I'm not going to look over your shoulder. You can expect me to give you feedback on a regular, informal basis related to day-to-day performance and longer-term career guidance. So this is one I got out of my my cards. A lot of the folks said, I don't get a lot of feedback from you. I said, well, I'm angry at you. You'll know, otherwise things are going well. I said, well, I don't think that's going to work. So I make a greater effort to spend more time. What I do is a coffee cup session with everybody. We schedule it now so that we make sure that we do it. We spend anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes just getting caught up, how are things going, and provide feedback, and it's a good two-way street, but we didn't have that before. You can expect me to solicit, listen to, and act on your feedback to me. You can expect me to operate ethically with integrity, honesty, and professionalism at all times. And the last ones are you can expect me to do the same thing. If I'm going to miss an obligation to you, I'll tell you, and then I'll tell you how I'm going to recover. I'll keep you informed on trends, strategies, requirements, news, and other issues from corporate and around the business, and I will respect your privacy and work-life balance and sessions. So that's just a start. This is a fairly long manual, but I've gotten pretty good feedback because people then they can understand how I work a little bit better when I'm in this mode, and it tends to work. So there's a couple of other areas that I'll just explore briefly. I want to give you a chance to ask some questions. As I mentioned to you, we work on this idea of getting better at leadership and practicing things. And we pick subjects at each one of the staff meetings. Sometimes we get outside people to come help us. Sometimes we do it ourselves. And a couple of the areas, the other leadership program I took, I doubt you'll have heard of this. Sen Delaney is the name of the company. And we did this, I did this probably 10 years ago. And it's a 3-day course, and we went all through it at the time. We all went through it as a staff. And the first day and a half, that they teach you concepts. And the next day and a half, you get to practice them live, which is pretty interesting. A couple of that I'll share with you quickly is they teach this concept called presumed innocence. And we've adopted this as one of our ways to operate at command. And presumed innocence means, hey, everybody around you is smart. They want to do their job well. So when you hear something that sounds out of order, we don't react by saying, well, what an idiot he is. Why in the hell would he do that? Our first response needs to be, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. John's a smart guy. He's been in this job a long time. That doesn't sound right. I need to go talk to John and find out. So the fundamental premise is I'm trusting my colleagues to do the right thing, and that's my first assumption when I hear something. So I'll go find out the facts. It's surprisingly how often we hear something, get an email, misinterpret it, and say, oh, man. Instead of saying, well, that doesn't sound right. That's a smart person. So presumed innocence is one of the things that we try to practice. The other one is what we call shadow of the leader. We work hard on this one. We talk about the fact that what the visual is, you see the person in this long shadow. And so what kind of shadow do you cast as a leader? And I was told one time, the first time I became a general manager, the COO said to me, he said, look, Greg, you're going to drive in this parking lot every day, and in that building, people are going to watch you get out of the car. They're going to know when you got here. They're going to know what you're wearing. They're going to know whether your car's clean or not. And they're going to look at the expression on your face, and they're going to decide whether Greg's in a good mood or not before you even get in the door. They're watching you all the time, and you don't know it. So we have this shadow of a leader, and we try to emphasize all of that. And it goes back to this example thing. What example are you setting all the time? And we have a bunch of things underneath that, like what you allow, you encourage. And think about that for a second. I mean, if you allow somebody to do a crummy job, then you've said that's okay. And you have to set that standard every single. If you're going to be good at this, those are the kinds of things that you have to do every day. And that's hard. So by doing this quarterly and reinforcing it, we kind of remind everybody. I hired a guy for the first time, promoted him a year ago from vice president of marketing to become the president of the business. And I explained this to him. We went through this in the first staff meeting. He came back 6 months and said, you're right. I said, I walked in the door and somebody came up and said, did you get a new car? I said, no, I just took it to the car wash. I said, well, why are you looking out the window at my car? And literally, they will do that. So you're on all the time. All the time you're on. Never forget it, because they'll remember everything you do. And that's all part of leadership. That's part of you can call it the burden. It's also part of the challenge. So I think we're getting towards the end here. So I'll stop there. I had several others depending on how much time we had to talk about some of these exercises. What I'm trying to emphasize in that area is you have to keep getting better all the time. And do it yourself, get help. But the leadership you can get better at it, and there are lots of ways to practice it and get better. Don't ever stop, all the way till the end. And one of the things, every day I've been in business for 30 years, and I told you, I'm a student all the time. And we continue to learn. So I'll stop there. Questions, the areas that we we discussed, do you like to kick around? Yeah, go ahead.
A question on something you just spoke about, the presumed innocence.
Mhm.
Can you give me an example of something that like you come across? Because I mean, I'm in more of a service industry, so more of a management. If I get a feedback from a customer about an employee, how many chances do you give a person? I mean, obviously you want to research what it's a he said, she said kind of thing. I mean,
Yep.
How do you approach that?
Well, but all of those, this happens all the time. I might get a note from a customer that says, you know, your deliveries are behind and you've missed this, and rather than call the president and say, what the heck is going on with Sikorsky? And say, oh, wait a minute. As far as I know, nobody told me that we missed any, you know, go back to my rules of engagement. So I called Bob and said, what's going on? I said, well, Sikorsky didn't deliver us the tail, so we couldn't put it together and deliver it, so we're late. Oh, okay. So then I can call the customer back and say, you're right, we missed the delivery. But Al, we missed the delivery because you guys didn't get us that tail in time. And if you could expedite that, we'll get it out of the factory quickly. So it's the idea that whenever you hear those things, it's the investigation. And I don't know what you do about he said, she said when there's two of them. You know, that we didn't put judgment on there. You have to put that one on there.
Absolutely. Thanks.
You mentioned earlier that two of the things you wanted, I think, to try and grow within the company was depth.
Uh-huh.
And I think you said differentiation.
Mm-hmm.
You said depth in terms of growing core competencies in
Right.
the company, and differentiation in terms of gaining more expertise, maybe buying more talents in the company. Do you find the two are contradictory?
No, not necessarily. One of the things that, in fact, it's on our list when we look at, for example, acquisitions. Management strength is one of the things I'm looking for. With 5 businesses at 125 to 150 million apiece, we don't have a lot of depth. That scale doesn't allow for a lot of development. It tends to be a president and then functional leadership and not much more. So for us to get that depth, which is scale, and get bigger, we could use some more talent. So when we look at acquisitions, we say, can we find a company that also has some pretty good talent? Now, we also look at that on the flip side and say, what do we do about developing our own talent? And so we're trying to do it from both sides, is do more development and training within our organization, as well as see if we can get it from the outside.
So out of the $600 million business, aerospace, how much is that organic and how much is that inorganic or acquisition?
Well, if we go back 3 years, we've really only done 2 acquisitions, which represent probably $75 million. So 525 of it today is organic, and 75 of it is acquisitions we've done in the last 3 years. When we look at our strategic plan, we say this needs to be 50-50. We're driving for $1 billion in 5 years, and we say 250's got to come from organic and 250 from acquisition. So we're using a little bit more balanced approach because we feel the need to accelerate growth. We're feeling a little vulnerable at the size we are. And in our environment, there's a lot of consolidation going on in the industry, and our customers want that. When we talk to Boeing and when we talk to Airbus, they say, I need bigger companies to take on bigger hunks of work for me.